Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever this video finds you. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's deep dive. We're going to be covering Exodus 1 all the way to, anyone take a guess?
32.
29.
30.
A lot of different answers, 32.
Okay.
Some of it was very close.
thought.
We're not going to actually cover the ending of Genesis. Genesis kind of like gives us a leeway into Exodus. So we're just going to go ahead and start then. So what have you got? Anything fascinating throughout Exodus so far that you guys may have taken away?
He is a God of details.
A lot of detail.
A lot of details.
Yes,
I thought that yesterday. Yesterday we talked about it.
we did.
You weren't there. It was just me and Hannah.
Oh,
It was the
we talked about it
girls.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Just kidding. It was just the girls. God of So what do you mean by God of details?
Just when you're listening, or, reading the chapters and you see like literally like we're talking about the different metals and it's talking about the different colors of the fabrics and exactly how it's supposed to be built, this size, all of that.
Okay.
Just there's details in every, especially when we get into the tabernacle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Absolutely. I also when you say details, there's some things that I caught that I was like, wait a second, I'm gonna have to pick the deep dives brains on this one. So the first thing that we can go into is the deliverance. When Israel's oppression in Egypt, the Israelites were enslaved, but God is already working through Moses' birth and calling. One thing that I mentioned to Patty this morning and with Greg, Pastor Greg, was, I didn't notice this, but when Moses was placed in the basket and he was going down the water, the Pharaoh's daughter picked up Moses, and then to the helper or the maid of the Pharaoh's daughter, she says, or the maid said, "Do you want me to go get someone to nurse a baby?" And then she says, "Go get the baby's mother." I've always assumed it was some other woman and not Moses' mother. I just assumed that. And I just completely glossed over that. So I was like, man.
It's so easy to do that. I feel like you're just reading it and then especially in the recap, then when she goes over something, I'm like, oh, nice. So
Nice.
I missed that part.
Yeah. Then we see in Exodus 3-4 the call of Moses. God speaks from the burning bush, showing his personal involvement in power and showing that God needs his sandals to be removed because he was stepping on holy ground. How many of us gone through a house and they're like, "Hey, can you take your shoes off?
Never.
My clean fuller."
How would you react if you were?
My wife tells me that all the time. Make sure you take your shoes off at the door. Do not walk through the house. Oops. Sometimes.
How would you feel if God was talking to you through a burning bush, Mike?
Honestly, I don't know. I would be a little bit weirded out at first, I guess.
Like on fire, but it's not burning.
Yeah, it's
Is
like
it weird that it slightly reminds me of like the Wizard of Oz thing? You know what I'm talking about? Like whenever he's.
that reminds me of like the fake fireplaces. The wood's never burning.
I know it's not like that, but like
It's
that face that's in there. Whatever. I thought it made sense.
Yeah, it makes
It
does make sense.
As the bush being on fire.
So, through the first question that I was going to ask is God's sovereignty in Exodus throughout Exodus 1-32. We see God's sovereignty at work, from delivering Israel from slavery to giving the law at Mount Sinai. How do these events shape our understanding of God's control in our own lives today? Now, I know that we haven't got to the law yet because that's going to be happening tonight with some of those who haven't read yet.
We've had the law.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have.
Okay.
You were over in Deuteronomy, you would remember that.
Yeah. So how do these events, we see Israel being moved across the Red Sea. We see even often in the beginning when Moses watches a Hebrew brethren being attacked by the guard, and then he kills him, and then he tries to break up the fight, and then all of a sudden the two Hebrew men were like, "Are you going to do to us what you did to that Egyptian dude?" And he was like, "Oh, they saw that." But you go from that, and then you go to where Moses shows up to the Pharaoh on almost seems like day to day, and he was saying, "Hey, look, this is God's calling his people," and the Pharaoh just still was retaliatory and was like, "No, yeah, you can go," and then he lied and said, "No, we're not taking it back. If I was a Pharaoh, I'd be like, but this dude comes back one more time. Do not answer the door. All right. This dude keeps coming back.
Don't let him in.
Don't let him in. He's bringing problems to Egypt. I'm surprised his representatives are like, man, why do you keep letting him in here?
Oh.
He keeps bringing stuff.
And it was like opposite of Joseph, right? Like he's like, keep coming back. You're bringing all the good stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now they don't want him there because they know he's going to take all of the blessings.
Yeah. So how do the events that we've read so far shape our understanding of God's control in our own lives today?
I think of it as like reading a book. Okay, so like you read the Bible or any book and you can see everything happening at the same time.
Mhm.
But like when you're, us humans, we can only see things from our point of view. We are not all knowing. We don't see everything that's going on. And so
That's a
I
very
like that.
God sees that. He sees everything happening all at once in the future, in the past.
And he's in control over all
yes.
of it.
And he is moving things and he's always in control of that.
interesting. Like that's a very good visual. Like God's
She
just
reads a lot of books.
yeah, God has a book open and we're in it, but we're only the people on the pages. We're just
Right.
like we don't know what happens next.
God's like, Michael, chapter 39.
I'm hoping I'm
Only
further
verse
off
4.
in the book. That's really early. I don't want to characters to die off early. Yeah. So how about any of you guys? Have you guys had anything or throughout your reading so far, and you can even go before this, that might have shaped your understanding of God's control?
I think it was just really wowing to, I mean, you obviously know he's in control over all of it, but like, I was saying, like once you're reading it, then you're like, wow, there's so many details, so many moving parts. And it just really helps you to think about that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Brad, do you have anything? No.
You go, you Brad.
Do you want me to say an alias?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Just
So
pronunciate next time.
Did it not sound like Brad?
Yeah.
It's enunciate. Is it? Is it enunciate or pronounce? Either way,
Enunciate.
enunciate. Brandon.
Now you can move on.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the golden calf incident. I know we're going to kind of jump later into the chapters here, or the chapters. So which I'm being informed that is something that the group hasn't read yet, but it's going to happen tonight. Today. Well, because some of you guys read tonight. I read.
I need to get ahead a day so that then I'm.
So do we want to talk about the golden calf incident, or do we want to just
I
wait?
mean, you can talk about it if you'd like.
Okay. The golden calf incident in Exodus 32, despite witnessing miracles, the Israelites seen a pillar of fire, riding as their beacon of hope, and not only that, but their pathway. It was illuminating the night. And then during the day, there's a giant cloud that was also hovering. This giant cloud also brought the waves crashing down on the Pharaoh's army. This cloud also rained bread, or aka manna, to the ground, and they were able to get that. They witnessed all these miracles. They witnessed all of these things, and yet they still go to worshiping something else.
Well, that's like all throughout Exodus.
Yeah.
It's like they're quick to just grumble
Yeah,
and moan. But then aren't we too?
That is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
It's weird because I think about it and I'm like, man, if I seen anything like that, how would I react today with my faith?
Yeah.
You know?
And we want to be like, oh, I would never act like that. But I think it's hard too. Again, like Hannah was pointing out, where you're reading it on paper, so you really know how they're feeling. And then who knows how much time passes between it. So it's like you're getting the pivotal points. You don't always get the, guts in the middle, but it just seems like all of a sudden, well, now they're mad again.
Right.
You know?
And there is that when they're traveling through the desert, there is a 40-year time span.
Yeah.
So they were eating manna for 40 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I couldn't just eat bread for 40 years. I mean, I'd have some digestion
the manna too.
issues. But
yeah, in 16.
yeah.
Yep.
So we see that despite witnessing the miracles, the Israelites quickly turned to idol worship. What does this reveal about human nature, and how can we guard our hearts from making similar mistakes in our faith journey? And Patty, you just mentioned it. Like, we are so quick to want to be like, we didn't see something on that grand scale, but we do see where prayers are answered, and yet we revert to being forgetful about what the prayer that we prayed
Yeah.
for was answered. We just like, we go back to autopilot. We're not really like thinking, no, that prayer was answered. God is here. God's with me. I need to continue giving it to God, and that we don't ever see that. We quick to go to something else.
Kind of reminds me of even like tragic events. It's like it happens, and in the moment you're just so it's horrible, and it's hard to even think about anything else other than that. And then time passes, and it's like also it happens more, and you become kind of desensitized to it. And I feel like that happens with us with our sin too. Unfortunately, that we just sometimes keep doing it.
Yeah. You guys have anything else from Exodus? Like we can talk about the plagues. We can talk about there's a wealth of knowledge in here and some golden nuggets, so to speak, that's riddled throughout all of Exodus. One thing that I want to take a note of that I spoke earlier about was when it was a quick text, and it was when Moses was heading back and God was going to kill Moses, and then Moses, his wife, did some circumcision and threw the skin down at his feet, and God backed off. I was like, and it was like, all right, next. It was such a quick read. I'm like, wait a second, God was about to kill Moses? Like, huh? Did you
And it
guys?
was like out of nowhere too. It was just
Yeah.
like,
It was a very quick thing, and then it moved on. And I was like, what did Moses do for God to have to go want to kill him? Like, I don't understand it. Do you guys have any insight on that?
Just the quick circumcision, like,
oh, and
I'm
here's the skin.
just imagining. Wait a second. A little frisbee golf or something. I'm not trying to make light of it, but no, I'm thinking.
Oh my
I'm like,
goodness! Like,
but I'm also thinking too that this is happening in seconds. This could have been like him running from God for like years.
Right.
mhm.
So I got to remember that the narrative seems like it's happening right now, but it could be 4 hours Moses was running, and all of a sudden Moses probably said something to God, and God was like, wait a second, kind of like Jacob and God wrestling.
I know that Rachel had mentioned yesterday when you were learning about the priestly garments, the bells on the bottom of the robe,
Mm-hmm.
and we were all talking about it, and it's so, they died. They didn't hear the bells. They knew, okay.
And then they
Really?
pull
He's
them back
dead.
in because
Yep.
nobody
Yeah.
can go into the Holy of Holies. So that's
Right.
why they had to wear those bells, because they're constantly doing things when they're in the Holy of Holies. So you'll hear the bells always. If you hear the bells stop and they're still there, then they have died. And that's why they have the rope attached to them so you can pull them
Direct
out,
out.
because nobody can go in there.
Right.
That
Yeah.
is next level. So you were talking about when the priests die in the Holy of Holies,
Or if they die.
if they
they-
die,
yeah.
their bells would stop ringing, so they would have to like drag them out.
Yep,
Mhm.
because nobody else is permitted to go into God's presence except for those specific high priests that were ordained.
Yeah, see, that's like that almost sets a reality in. Like, no, God was physically there, and if you got too close, it's like,
Mhm.
sorry, man.
I mean, just
Chapter
like,
40.
he doesn't let, he tells they can't touch the mountain, but he allows only certain people can be in his presence.
Then he calls Moses' brother Aaron. He goes, go grab Aaron,
Mhm.
But if anyone that would touch this mountain, they would die.
Mhm.
Man, that's such like, I don't even know. Is that like for an obedience factor? Is that what that
I just
was?
think it's
like,
the
is that
greatness
was?
of God.
Yeah,
like
just
you
the
can't
sovereignty.
be in his.
Mhm.
I'm over here thinking like, is God trying to like make sure they understand obedience? But
I also think
I'm
it's
miss-
the fear of God.
Yeah.
too, to know that he is
Right.
control over all.
Like the water and the rock. There's honey in the rock.
Yep.
But like when Moses, now I'm not sure if we're there yet with Moses, but I mean I kind of am familiar with the story with the staff, and he does it on his own term and strikes it for water. That is a very big significant, because Moses acted upon himself and didn't get the instruction from God. And then when I can't remember the guy's name who shows up on the scene when Moses was acting as judge, when he was being
This
do
is
you know who that is? I can't remember his name, but it's like he's acting as judge, and he goes, why don't you give the
Jebediah,
lesser cases to other
The
people?
father-in-law?
yes, a father.
Yeah,
I think
father-in-law.
it's Jebediah.
Jebediah.
Zebediah?
It's Jebediah. pretty sure.
Zibajib.
But he was like, here, why don't we give the lesser cases to pockets of individuals for them to kind of judge, and then the serious ones, you do that, And I was like, okay, that that kind of made me think about the court of law or whatever.
Democracy.
Yeah, that made me think of like democracy. Like that was like
Mhm.
a cool little,
Agree. Yeah.
a cool little thing there.
I was trying to find what chapter that was in because I know I had it highlighted. Oh, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you were here for this, Michael, but at Risen Church, there was a couple who came in and brought in like priestly garments and things like that were modeled after what the Bible talks about how they looked. Like they brought in things like that. They brought in what the temple and things would look like. They brought in, all of that just to show, because it does, it's hard to read through all that. Like reading about how everything has to be made and that kind of thing. And so I just remember that at Risen Church.
Yeah.
Them coming in and like having the robes and everything just to show people,
It was Jethro, by the way.
Jethro. Okay.
No idea where I got the other.
Well, you were saying something about Hannah about like the measurements and the things. Like when you're just reading it, you're not really there. So you're not like, it's kind of like me giving you a blueprint and all right, read this. Like, are you really going to pay attention to all this?
There were some pictures I had seen where it like gives you a mock up of what the tabernacle looked like, and then also the robes and stuff. It'd be kind of interesting just to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you read it and it's hard to picture.
Yeah, I'm like, what is? I'm even sitting there thinking like,
it gives you so much detail to be able to picture it, but it's like my eyes can't go over all those words.
Yeah, and so as you're reading it, you're like, is it a lot? Like you're trying to visualize it, and the Bible, my Bible, my archaeological Bible, gives me a really good rundown of what it looks like and what it would have looked like in real life. But still, it just like it's almost that there's like a disconnect because it's like I don't really. I'm like, it's like I said, reading a blueprint. Like I'm not going to read the blueprint, but then you skim over it. But no, there's important things in there because there's numbers in there that are related to direct pi and the golden ratios, and it's pretty fascinating stuff.
And I read someone say like the reason it gives all these details too is just so that you know that it is a real thing.
Yeah,
it can be replicated. Like I mean, that is what it's what it was.
Yeah. Like I said, there's so many different things, and throughout 1 through 32, there's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, when he went through the laws, I had a hard time right there. Like not the laws, like the 10 Commandments could carry, but then when it started to go into them in more detail, I struggled in that section of it.
There's just so much.
Yes, I'm like, what am I supposed to take away here? But
so with the law, I heard something recently about the law was never meant for us to adhere to. It was meant to show us that we could not live up to that standard, which is why Jesus was meant to be.
And also, if you did somehow live, like if you did follow it to the T, like some of the Jewish priests and things it still isn't enough. You have to have Jesus.
Yeah. And I thought that was pretty fascinating.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Well, do you guys have anything else? All right. If you guys want to appear on the show, and make sure also if you want to have or if you have a question you want it read, just be sure to email us at deepdive@libertyhill.church, and also email that if you'd like to be on. We will be picking up with reading from Exodus 43 to, forgive me, it's
33, right?
Sorry, 33, not 43. 33 to the end of Exodus, and we go into Leviticus. Yep.
But you're already there.
Yep. I'm already. Yep.
Mike's going to give us a
pre-sermon there. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in today's video. If you did like what you hear, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps out this video, and it also spreads Jesus amongst the digital platform as well. So we'll see you guys next time.